Hello everyone, welcome to episode 1 of the Coach's Corner, where today we're going to talk about man-to-man defense. So let's break it down. There are two important things to note here. You would be surprised as well as how many notes I have on my note card about this topic. You can tell I love me some football. So first things first, let's talk about what exactly we're talking about in man-to-man defense. We're going to bring up a couple things here. The first thing that is important to know is there are two base types of defense at its core. There's man defense and there's zone defense. There's variations. You'll have man blitz, zone blitz, man blitz, zone blitz, some unique styles of each based off your defensive alignment, which we'll get to in later episodes. But the important thing to note is there are essentially two forms of defense. You're either playing man-to-man when you're attempting to defend the offense, you're playing zone. So, what exactly is man? If we go here, so I'm in a 3-4 playbook using the Bucks. We're going to go here. We have cover 2 man. So what this means is you have your defensive front, you have the people that are interacting as rushers, essentially on the defensive line, attacking the offensive line. We'll word it that way. So as you can see here, if you look at triangle, you have the 3 defensive linemen, which are the squares. The linebackers are all the circles, and all the members of the secondary are the X's. So as you'll see here, we have 3 defensive linemen rushing, and we have one of our edge linebackers rushing as well, so that gives you 4. That means that essentially 7 players are defending against options on the other side of the ball. So to better show this, let's come out with a couple of different formations here. We're going to come out with deuce close. We're going to run stick. So what we're looking at here is I'm controlling white. If you see, he has a white line connecting him to number 86. What this means is when the ball is snapped, he shadows him. If it's a pass play, he shadows him. If it's a run play and he's a blocker, he will engage with him. That is his responsibility. Switching over here to the side, you have Murphy Bunting. I wouldn't want to match up against Julio, but it's the same thing. So as you can see, there is a line connecting the defensive player to his responsibility. On offense, keep in mind, at all times on offense, you have 5 offensive linemen. So that means every play there is an opportunity for 6 available options. That can change based on how the offense wants to run, but there are always 6 potential. 5 receiving options, whether they're tight ends. In this case, we have 2. We have 81 on the right, 86 on the left of the offensive line. Let's run the play. And those on the edge. So you can see 2 receivers, the corners are matched up. The linebacker matched up against the running back. I want to note this. This is really important going forward. Now, what makes this unique, because even with man-to-man defense, we have things that are unique about these formations and situations. So remember, we have 4 people attacking the line, right? So that means that there are really 7 people defending against. If we're talking specifically about the pass, we have 7 people defending the pass. So there are 5 people that are all accounted for. They're all matched up, as you can see, going across the board. All 5 offensive options for Matt Ryan are covered. So what you have here is you have Whitehead and the other safety in cover 2 man. What this means is, in a typical cover 2 defense, the 2 safeties play deep. They're responsible for 1/2 of the field, essentially. So this is what you have in this big blue circle back here. That is his responsibility. So ideally, when the ball is snapped, your safety should head back. We're going to watch this play out just to kind of show. You see both safeties bail out immediately. The reason they bail out is they're supposed to be protecting the deep ball. So what that means is, for example, we're going to go back to better illustrate this. What this means is if we go back to this exact same defense, and we're going to go to something a little bit different. We're going to go with go corners. What this means is, remember, both receivers are running vertical routes, which are streaks down the field. That means they are covered up top. My corner over here is going to get help from Winfield. Winfield is going to play the deep ball. So it means, in a sense, you are double teaming Julio. This is what I would say you can classify, I guess, as it being disguised. It's not, because they're both bailing back. But it helps protect the deep ball. It helps prevent big plays. So even if they get beat off the line of scrimmage, you have someone that can help over the top. But even see here, we have two receivers out on the field. You have a tight end and you have two backs in the backfield. You see the same thing. JPP at linebacker covering the tight end. Corners covered. I'm trying to get it over to where I want. White. See, he's covering the running back, the one in the back. The fullback covered by Levante David. So again, everyone is accounted for and covered. Let's even go look at a different formation just to further illustrate this. Then we'll talk about why cover two man, or why the difference in the different types of man defense you can have. So let's go shotgun. Let's go 5 wide. So you can see same thing. This looks a little bit different. In this case, everyone is aligned. So they are standing directly in front, but you still have your 2 safeties in the back. You still have your 3 defensive linemen. You have your, the edge rusher and Shaq Barrett over there. And everyone else is accounted for. They're lined up directly across from their player, or their responsibility. So now let's look at it from a defensive perspective and see some things are a little bit different. So we have that. This is a 3-man front. You say it's a 3-man front because there are 3 people with their hand on the ground, essentially on the line, attacking the offensive line. Doesn't mean you don't have other people that are coming up, but it's a 3-man front initially. So those 3 are covered for. You have 7. What those other 7 do are a little bit different. So we can look at some variations of this type of man defense. I don't want to get into man blitz. We'll talk about that in another episode. Let's look at something different. How about cover 1? This is essentially a man type defense too. So let's come out and strong. So this one is different. This is man to man. We essentially have 5. You may have to touch on man blitzing just a little, but it looks different, and I can kind of explain that. But I just really want to focus on a manless blitz. What you have here is you have your outside linebackers are playing contain, which is listed as red. So they're essentially pass rushers, but their responsibility is to keep the quarterback inside the pocket. But if you look at that, we have a 3-man front. You have 2 outside linebackers, so that takes 5 players. That means you have 6 left over. Again, remember, there's always 5 options potentially for a quarterback. All are covered, but because we only have 1 safety on this play that is unaccounted for, he alone plays deep. Our other safety is playing in the box. It's what we call inside 10 yards from the line of scrimmage. So Whitehead is playing in the box, and he is matched up against a tight end. You can see you have David matched up against the fullback, White the running back, and then on the edges, my corners, Bunting and Davis, matched specifically up against the receiver. The difference in this is there's only 1 safety. This is why we call it cover 1. Only 1 player is covering a deep area of the field. It is Winfield. He is covering the deep middle third. So let's run the play. So again, you see Winfield bails back, but man to man, then that's what we have here. Everyone shadows their responsibility. So here is where things get interesting with man. A couple things that you need to factor in. So we're going to look at some things here. The first thing is your coach adjustment. So remember, you have your depth chart, and you have players listed in certain positions. We're going to look at the depth chart, and then we're going to talk about coach adjustments. There's a couple things to remember. First of all is your slot corner. This is your first corner in the slot. So if you run a specific type of defense, which I'll get to, that covers, this is your primary corner in the slot. Most of the time, what you want in the slot is someone who is fast, because usually the offense will run a shifty receiver in the slot. Granted, there are formations where they may have their number one or number two receiver in the slot, but in most cases, you will put your slot corner is going to be someone fast, because you have the Julian Edelmans of the world, you have the Wes Welker types, Scotty Miller. So I'm a Bucks fan, I gotta go ahead. Adam Humphries, basically a shifty route runner who's not big, but just is able to get open and work the middle of the field. When you look at cornerback, which is the main one we're really going to be looking at here, you have them listed however you have them listed. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. There are some attributes that are important for cornerback. First of all, speed and acceleration. How quick they are in terms of acceleration and how fast they are. This becomes important. Acceleration means how long does it take them to get to their max speed. Speed is obviously how fast, just pure, flat out fast they are. Awareness. There's still a lot of discussion on what exactly awareness means. My interpretation of it means the higher their awareness is, the more likely they play up to their skill level. Basically, the higher their awareness, also the higher their floor is. You can see Carlton Davis is a 77 overall. The higher his awareness is, the higher he plays to his overall rating. Again, important things, change of direction. Again, with a slot corner, you're going to want someone who has a fast change of direction, because slot receivers don't tend to run a lot of deep routes. They tend to run a lot of short stuff. So you need someone who's able to stop on a dime and run with them. And then the more important things, especially on man, as we go down the road here. The fun stuff, play recognition. This means, are they able to recognize the play that's being run? Do you pick up that this is a screen pass and react appropriately? Are you able to recognize that this is a play action and react appropriately? Do you take the bait, or are you able to stick with your assignment? Man coverage, which is important for this video. How great they are of keeping up with their receiver. Remember, this is graded on a scale of 0 to 99. In most cases, you're going to see 60 to 99. The higher they are means the harder it is for players to get open against them. We like to have something in Madden called mirror routes. What a mirror route means is if their receiver runs a slant, the corner runs the route before them. Is it silly? At times it can be, yes. But that's basically what it means. They're able to run the route before the receiver, thus the receiver isn't open, the receiver breaks on the ball, the corner breaks before, and basically takes away the play. Press, and this is something that is going to be really important. This is going to be a recurring theme in this video. What press means is they jam at the line of scrimmage. The higher the rating, the more successful, the odds that they are more successful in jamming the receiver. What this means is, in football, you can jam, put your hands on the receiver up to 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. So what you like to do is you press, and I will show you how to do that. It throws off the timing of the route. Most offenses are timing based. If I'm throwing a slant as a quarterback, I know when I hike the ball and I finish my drop back, there's a clock in my head saying that the receiver should have run his route by point X. So I should be able to look over there and see, hey, Julio Jones, Matt Ryan's dropping back against us. Bam. If I look over to the left, Jones should have just be hitting his slant, just hitting his in route. The tight end should just be breaking back to the ball on a curl route. So when you jam a receiver, it throws off the timing. Thus, it gives your defensive line a little more time to work with in getting home to the quarterback, or a blitz, whatever you have going on. It gives you more time to get to the quarterback. The intent is you want to force the ball out before the quarterback is ready. In that case, that means the receivers are being covered, more likely to knock the ball down, knock it away, or create a turnover. Let's look at a couple of things. Remember how I said when we look at this, go to man. Squares are defensive linemen, circles are linebackers, and then you have the X's as a secondary. Well, what happens when we go to nickel? We're at 3-3-5. Look at that. There are 3 squares, There are 3 circles. There are 5 X's. We're going to cover defensive formations in the upcoming videos, like for the rest of September. But what this means in nickel is I have an extra corner. I'm basically subbing out a linebacker for a nickel. So you see here, it's the same thing. I have 3 down linemen. One of my linebackers is rushing to make 4. I still have the 7 players in the back. The difference is I have 3 cornerbacks instead of 3 linebackers. If we go to dime, same thing. Except, same thing with in terms of 3 down linemen and, or I guess a little bit different to 2, 3, 6. It's going to be variations. I don't think I have anything different for this team. I need different playbooks to be able to show, but you see 1, 4, 6, for example. There is no real. Things can be very different and creative. You can do some really creative stuff on defense. You see the bottom one, cover 2 man. I have 1 down lineman and 1 square. I have 4 linebackers. 3 of them are rushing. I have 6 secondary members, 2 extra cornerbacks. So basically we have sub defensive linemen for linebackers and we still have sub linebackers for secondary. So you have 6 secondary members. Nickel, you have 5. Prevent, a little bit different. In terms of the line, you have 3 safeties and you have 4 corners. So you have 7. It just looks different. The numbers can be the same, but the way that it lines up can look different. Goal line is just going to be different all the way around because it's dependent on which plays you run. You have goal line 5-3, and you see in this one we have 2 X's. So you can have man-to-man in goal line. Obviously a lot more people rushing. The problem with this is, which I will show, if you run goal line in a non-goal line situation, say example doubles, you have a lot more people rushing, but in this case you have no safeties. It's just everyone is responsible for their person, which could be bad because if you get beat, you definitely pay the price. It's nice to have the safety in the back, but it depends on what you're trying to do. So let's look at some of the things that you can do defensively to kind of help out your team. If we drop back here, you go to coach adjustments. And there's some things you need to be aware of to help you be able to run a man defense a little more effectively. And it depends on how you want to run football. Or how you want to run your defense. The one I want to look at here is cornerback matchups. So what it means when it's balanced, my slot corner is always going to be the slot corner, regardless of alignment, regardless of formation. And my corners are sorted in terms of the depth chart, so 1 through 5. And they will appear wherever they appear. If Bunting is my number 1 corner, he will always be my number 1 corner. He always lines up on the same side of the field. It doesn't matter. I always account for him being on side X, whether it's right or left, depending on where I have him on the depth chart. You can change things. You can do it by overall. What this means is no matter where Julio Jones matches up, my top corner will always follow him, which is Carlton Davis. Carlton Davis will always follow Julio Jones wherever he is on the field if we play man-to-man. Bunting will always be on Ridley because that's the number 2, so on and so forth. You can do by speed. So the fastest corner I have, regardless of rating, the fastest corner on my depth chart will always match up with the fastest receiver. So for example, if you're playing the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill is going to get your fastest corner regardless of rating. That way it helps prevent you from getting beat deep, or at least tries to help you. Depends on the personnel you have. By height, tallest corner, tallest receiver. This helps if you're someone that wants to play a press defense, because by playing press, you're trying to jam a receiver at the line of scrimmage. You would hate to have a short corner trying to jam a big receiver. Most of the time you're going to lose that matchup. The bigger receiver is bigger and stronger, you're going to lose. So this helps to kind of even it across the board. It also helps for players that like to, you're facing opponents that like to run deeper routes, because you tend to have 50-50 balls. You've given yourself a chance to be able to defend it a little bit better because you have a corner that has the size to match up against them. And then by route running. So what I was saying earlier, the better route receivers get matched up against your better man coverage corners. So regardless of overall rating, you're taking their best route runners and listing them 1 through 5. We're taking your best corners in terms of man coverage and listing them 1 through 5, so that they're always matched up. And then obviously by depth chart. This is different because some people like to be slick and will maybe say, I'll put Julio Jones in the 3rd spot because I know most people don't pay attention and I can just run, he'll be matched up against, in most situations, the 3rd best corner. By doing it by depth chart, you can get specific matchups the way that you want. I may want to put Carlton Davis against Julio Jones, but I may get in a situation and say, you know what, I want to put Davis against Ridley. I want to lock down a different receiver other than number 1. This is a way of going about it because I can put a top corner against maybe a lesser receiver, somewhat funneling the ball away from certain players or certain areas of the field. So that's one way of being able to adjust your defense. And those are things that you can do to help the man defense. So there's a couple things I want to look at before I end this video. We're going to come back in this, and we're going to come out in just the base formation. So we have coverage adjustments. This is done by hitting triangle. What this means is I can, regardless of what I call, I can make adjustments at the line of scrimmage to do things to help disguise, force, or adjust my defense. So if you see with the right stick with R, there's different things you have. You have over, top, inside, outside, and underneath. This is how your defense is going to play certain routes. So in man defense, if you go underneath means they're going to play underneath routes. That means they're going to tend to jump on balls on routes that break early and try to undercut them, interceptions. This means that you're going to be more likely to be beat on deeper balls because they're going to try to play shorter routes. Outside, your corners are going and your linebackers are going to leverage to the outside. That means they're going to play outside and give up the inside. For example, here you look at 86 over here. So that means Davis is going to cover him, but he's going to be trying to jump routes on the outside. So if he runs an out route, if he runs a flat route, he's more prone to being able to stop that. On the flip side, because of that, if you throw a slant, if you throw a corner route, even if you run a deep route, he's still going to be on the outside. If you're able to throw the ball inside, it's almost a guaranteed completion. You hope that as a corner, your player is quick enough to recover, but in most cases, as soon as the player breaks on a route, once they break inside, the player should be open right away. Inside is the reverse. We're going to play the inside stuff. So slants, the inside on a curl route, jumping in routes, jumping post routes. So anything on the outside will be open. And then over top, which means we want to play the deep ball. We're going to play off. We're going to give you space up front. That means shorter stuff will be open because you are playing back. You're not being aggressive. You're being passive on defense. So all 4 have pros. All 4 have cons. If you look at the left stick, we have things that we can do as well. So press, and this is something I wanted to get at. So we're going to actually go to a different formation where everyone is aligned, and I can show this a little bit better. So we're going to go, and we're going to adjust the camera a little farther back so it's easy to see. So same thing. Remember, everyone is lined up across from their player, right? If I go down for press, notice my corner on the left with Julio. He steps up. I didn't mean to do that though. Let me just switch off. Let's look at it again. See, he steps up there to try to press him. So you see when he runs, he's right there at the line of scrimmage. So what you're trying to do again is throw off the timing. Don't press that time. See how easily he gets open. Good route run. Julio Jones is able to get open instantly. But when we press, run the same route. Instead of breaking route in, he gets jammed. Julio's still able to outrun him a little because he's fast, but you see, he's able to be involved in the play a little bit more, throws off the timing, and he's right there with him. Some other stuff, show blitz. So let's watch the safeties here. I show blitz. Notice both safeties come up in the box. You still have my corner come up to press. We hike the ball. Everyone bails out. There's no press there. Again, it throws off the timing a little. When you're trying to make reads as a quarterback, you see the safeties come up. You're wary of what they're doing. Base align. That means we shift. And this means we come out in our native formation. So when I run the play on the screen, when you're in the play call, this is what things look like when it shows the play art, which is the play call. They shifted to that. So now you hike the ball, you can see over here, David is a little bit farther off. If I can switch them real quick. David lines off the receiver. Edwards lines off the receiver. And also, Bunting is a little bit inside because that's what the base defense looks like. All right, let's run the play. Wide open because it's backed off, as expected. And then lastly, give cushion. Everyone backs off. Everyone in the secondary backs off. So you see everyone gets a huge cushion. Julio's going to be wide open again because now the corner has to run extra distance across the field to be able to line up with him. So there are some other things to look at. There are adjustments, individual adjustments. So let's see, Edwards. You have man coverage, which he's already doing. A bluff blitz, which means faking a blitz and bailing out. A regular blitz, you blitz and spy. And then the other ones are for playing zone based on what you have, okay? Individual, so then we can look at the same with receivers. So you have Jones in the slot, right? You can do things differently. And this is a unique feature I don't think too many people know about. You have the ability to specifically decide how you want to cover player X. In this case, Julio Jones, we can back off. We can shade to his inside or his outside. We can press him, or we can spotlight. Spotlight means that he is going to be the key focal point defensively. That means safeties are more aware of him, and zone players tend to hold their zones a little bit longer when he's in them. He gets the focus. Of course, that means you're compensating elsewhere, but you're trying to negate how big of an impact. So just for example, let's play spotlight and see what happens. It's wide open. Safety still have to come back. You notice a little more on zone. One other thing to look at that some people don't use that you can do is let's look at Winfield. This may be more of an advanced strat or Whitehead. Remember, put him in man, put him on Jones. If you playing someone you know how they're playing, you can double team receivers. You can triple team receivers if you want to, or running backs. Key thing here, Jones is coming across the field on a drag route. This player, we'll say, has run this play a lot. So I'm going to bring Whitehead up and have him play man-to-man with Jones. So let's watch what happens here. It's going to look a little bit different. Whitehead's going to come up immediately, as you can see there. But notice the ball comes out a little bit faster. The reason the ball comes out faster, notice the computer, but they realize what's going on here. So we'll zoom in a little so it's a little easier to see. So he's coming, and you see he's there, so he is being double teamed. Essentially takes him out to play. It comes at a cost though, because remember, if Whitehead is doing this, this is where he's covering. That means this whole area of the field is wide open. Like I said, there is no such thing as a perfect defense. Every defense has pros and cons. So that is something that you need to be aware of. Secondly, something else that I wanted to bring up, and it's not going to be illustrated with this. It's going to be illustrated a little bit better with a running back in the backfield. So let's talk about some of the things that make man-to-man tough to run. I want you to notice something. Notice David is guarding the running back. The running back is going to be in the backfield always. He's the farthest. That white line there is by far the biggest. That means David has the most work in order to get to cover his man. All right, here we go. Gurley has got the biggest distance. When you see Hurst, his guy is going to be the guy right off his shoulder. This is why Hurst is wide open. Notice, as soon as the ball's height, JPP has to come out of his stance and come across. He's underneath on the inside route. He's leveraged to the outside. It's an easy read, especially if it's just pure man-to-man. Easy. See, every time you're running, he's wide open. Tight end against a linebacker can be scary. Most tight ends are bigger, and they usually have advantages to linebackers because they're able to use their body to shield off. Julio Jones, obviously a huge receiver. We'll run that just so I can kind of show a point. You look at man-to-man. You want to throw the ball when the receiver is breaking on the ball. So you can see triangle. It's against a linebacker. Easier for the receiver to get open in most cases. But what I really want to do is showcase the running back. This is why this can be dangerous. So let's send him on a out route. I want you to watch the linebacker and watch the running back. The linebacker is the one with the star. David plays the ball well there, right? What if we come out in a formation that makes it harder for the linebacker to keep up with him? So again, David is covering him, right? A little bit farther off the ball. Tight end still is able to get open on the linebacker, at least create the separation, but David is a good linebacker, but he's a little farther off the ball. Some of those plays are easier to hit because of the distance. Another thing is it's easy to tell sometimes when you're a man. You can disguise it, but if I send a man in motion, the defense has to realign because it's man-to-man, so someone has to follow him out there. Sometimes in zone, they don't necessarily do that. So as an offense, I can send someone in motion, one, to create a mismatch, like we do here, a little bit harder, but everyone shifts over one. That's why Levante David's good corner, good linebacker. Most linebackers are not like that. The running back is the dangerous one for a lot of reasons. It's a tough cover, and one thing also, you can hike the ball really fast. So you have the mismatch there. Look at that. David's covering the tight end. Again, it's a little bit of a mismatch because of the size. Corners tend to make it easy to play in this situation for a couple reasons. So we're in nickel. Where's that? Do RPO, so we'll run the football. This is the bad thing about running man-to-man defense. You have to pay attention to the alignment. You can't really show it here, but when the offense calls a play, the defense sees the personnel. They don't see the play call, so they see X receivers, X tight ends, X running backs, so you call accordingly. In most cases, the more receivers you see on the field, the more likely you are to come out in a nickel or dime formation because of that. It's easier to run the football. The box essentially is smaller. It's easier to read. I don't have to worry about if I think someone's blitzing because I know I have the numbers up front. Tight ends should win head-to-head blocking with linebackers in most cases. Receivers win with cornerbacks in most cases, making it easier to run the ball. The holes tend to be bigger and it's just an easier read. You're not seeing it here, but the box just looks smaller. So for example, if I were to come out in Falcon Trip, we're going to run the base play that everyone runs, base. So you see all of those, so okay, I'm going to come out and dime. Look at how open that box is. There are 3, 4, 5 in the box. Technically 6, you have the edge rusher, but he's defending Hurst. Look how much space you have to work with. It's not a great run play. but look how much space you have to work with. If you were to slam the ball up the middle there, absolutely disgusting. Looks better against a human, but just look at how much green there is to work with here. So much space. Versus if I were to come out in a conventional formation, we'll say just come out in I formation. So you have your typical formation, so they come out in a typical base formation. Look at that. That looks different. Yes, I have more blockers because I have a fullback and a tight end, but they also have more defenders, so there are more things that could happen. And even in man, it can be really easy to put yourself in a situation where if you want to run the ball against man defense, you're at a disadvantage because you're so worried about the pass and you're trying to stop the pass. You have to do creative things defensively in those other formations. So there's pros and cons. If you come out in man, there's that. And there's one other really big con about coming out in man defense. So what were to happen if they come out in 5 wide? Remember, I want to show this, and this is something you have to be wary of. This is why man defense is that it has its pros, it has its cons. We're going to come out in shotgun, or in, yeah. Notice everyone's covered, right? You have the 2 receivers on the left, they're covered. The 3 receivers, well, technically 2 tight ends, but the receiving options. There's only one person that is not accounted for, and has not been accounted for in this whole scenario. That is a quarterback. If you come out in man, one of the big drawbacks is when you have 5 people running routes, if those rushers don't get home, the quarterback has huge lane to run through. All that space for Brady if they don't get in. This makes guys like Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Mariota extremely scary because you can take off and run right up the middle. Brady's too slow, but hey, drop back and run up the middle or able to hit the edge, because when the play's extended, the longer the play goes, the longer these guys have to cover. The longer they have to cover, the more likely someone is to get open, because you can cover them initially. Go a little more of a deeper routes here. Just dropping back so you can see, but eventually those receivers down the field come back. They can be open. If someone's fast, no matter how good someone covers, eventually these guys get open. Like, it's just a matter of time until someone gets open. There are counters for that though. And that's something that I want to look at. And again, it comes at a cost. So there is the option, which I'll just show. You can take a rusher, X for individual assignment, right stick spy. So watch Jones. I will step up and I will try to cover Gronk. Jones is going to run up to the middle of the offense, or middle of the front there, and he's basically going to try to do his job to keep the quarterback in the pocket. Spy is pretty much a shadow for the quarterback. So in a nutshell, that's man defense. So to recap, offense, or sorry, you're looking at man defense. Your corners shadow the receiver. You can adjust if they shade inside, outside. If they play inside, outside, they play over the top. Depending on what type of man defense you have, what formation, you may have 2 safeties, which is cover 2 man. You may have 1 safety, which is cover 1 man. In goal line, in most cases, you have no safeties over the top. Your rushers, you can hot route, especially if you have rushing linebackers, if you want to help stop the pass or the running quarterback, to shadow the quarterback. But again, it comes at its cost. Usually when you're a man in shotgun formations, it thins out the box, making it easier to run, number 1. 2, you have to worry about the linebackers, because they're typically going to have a mismatch. Their linebackers are built more to play against the run, even though we have the hybrids now, the Derek Brookses of the world that can play in coverage. But a lot of linebackers don't have that speed, so running backs are a mismatch. So that's usually an early read for an offense, and also tight ends are a mismatch because they're bigger. So even if the linebacker is fast enough to keep up, the tight end can use his body to shield off the receiver and create a passing window for the quarterback. The emphasis though in man defense is, you remember, you can't cover forever, so your defensive front has to get home. You can press to throw off the timing of the route, but also throwing off the timing puts you at risk, because if you press and miss, you bump and the receiver is able to get by, they're going to have an advantage on deeper routes because they're going to get over the top of you really fast. Big disadvantage for the corner, and also for the defensive line. What you're really trying to do is throw off the timing and give your defensive line more time to get to the quarterback. If that receiver misses, if that corner misses the receiver and the receiver gets a free release off of that, you're probably giving up a touchdown. If not a touchdown, a huge play if the safety can't get over top, if you have a safety at all. Well, hopefully you learned something from this. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask in stream or ask in the comments. I will do my best to answer to the best of my ability. Next week, we're going to cover defensive alignments. Maybe we should have started with that, but I wanted to start with the base defensive man-to-man to kind of plant the seed of what it's supposed to do. So now when I go to the formations, a 4-3, a 3-4, we start to talk about that, you get a better idea of why man-to-man works better with certain formations than it does in others. Well, thanks for watching. We'll definitely keep this going every week. Next, we will cover 4-3 and 3-4 alignments. We'll probably just cover 4-3. Make it simple. It's what I know a little bit more, so we'll start there and we'll cover 3-4 after. So thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time. Have a good Wednesday.